I think that the biggest thing I learned was really like the power of the stories that these individuals hold, and unfortunately that not a lot of them have an outlet for letting people know their experiences.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Next Step. I'm Jeff Kozlowski. For this episode, I talk with Alejandro Vera. He's a graduate of the University of Rochester's master's program in health humanities and bioethics. Alejandro shares why the field is so vital for bridging science, medicine, and human experience, and he reflects on how the program shaped his academic path. He also talks about the year he took after graduation to pause, write his own story, and prepare for the PhD journey he's on today. And he reminds us of something simple yet powerful: the importance of meeting people and building connections that open doors. Here he is. Thank you, Alejandro, for joining us for this episode of The Next Step. It's nice to have you. Last time we spoke, you were getting ready to move from San Francisco, or the Bay Area, I believe, right, to Texas for a PhD. How did that go?
Pretty good. Yeah, I was essentially making a pit stop from being in Rochester for a while back home before I transitioned here to Texas. So I'm down in Galveston on the island here, and it's been about a month, so I think I'm finding my way and getting my routine kind of settled.
That's great. And what program are you in, and what institution?
I'm in the bioethics and health humanities PhD program here at the University of Texas Medical Branch.
And how different is Texas from Rochester, or Galveston, Texas from Rochester, New York?
Much different. I think definitely in terms of size, it's a much smaller location, but I think there's definitely a strong kind of like local residents presence here. So it's been nice to explore a little bit of a smaller community, but what seems to be a really like tight knit one. Um, and yeah, I think it has a lot of similarities to Rochester as well in terms of like food, community activities, things that go on kind of like through the months. So yeah.
Well, glad you're settling in. As we mentioned a minute ago, you grew up in the Bay Area, right?
Yes, yeah,
Yes. Okay, so that's home for you.
yes.
So eventually made it to Rochester. I want to talk about that, the sort of origin story for Rochester. So you applied to the REMS program originally.
Yes.
So you had intentions of, and if folks don't know what REMS is, that's Rochester Early Medical Scholars, and so it's as an undergraduate, if you get accepted to that program, you have a conditional guarantee of admission to the MD program at the School of Medicine and Dentistry, and all kinds of other sort of benefits. Difficult to get into, of course, and you didn't get accepted to that, Alejandro, but um, talk a little more about that, because you stayed on the radar of U Rochester, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was a blessing in disguise that I did not get into the REMS program because I think I would have been on a much different trajectory if I had kind of those set in stone steps ready post undergrad. But yeah, I think since I didn't get in, the university themselves considered me for kind of a acceptance into just the general undergraduate arts of science and engineering school. So uh, I was sent a letter of admission after not really following up after not getting into the REMS program. So I'm really grateful that they um, one saw that and saw kind of like the potential I had to kind of like reach out and offer that to me. So yeah.
And so you eventually transitioned to bioethics. And what sparked that shift? How did you know that that was kind of where you wanted to go?
Yeah. So I originally started off as just a biological sciences major, and ended up keeping that since I had already completed some of the coursework as a minor once I wrapped up my program. Um, but I think as I started to get a little bit more of exposure in clinical settings, I did the UR pre-doc program, which is for undergraduate students, and provides shadowing experience, mentorship with medical students and faculty at the School of Medicine and Dentistry. uh, I wasn't really seeing a lot of the clinical spaces that I was experiencing as aligning with how I wanted to engage and interact with individuals. So I think that's what sparked my exploration for what could be a better fit for myself. And that's when I found bioethics and kind of existing in the larger realm of public health and philosophy at the University of Rochester. So I thought that that was a really interesting kind of like challenge, especially not having really exposure to either philosophy or public health prior. Um, so yeah, once I started with those introductory courses, it started to feel more like how I wanted to kind of build a career in healthcare. So followed through with bioethics.
And so, can you just speak then on? So eventually, you did apply and got accepted to the Health Humanities and Bioethics Masters program. What was the thought process behind doing the masters, and then talk a little bit about just some of the more memorable moments or formative moments from being in that program.
Absolutely. Um, I think the biggest factor was really outside of the master's program, and just more of an influence from Rochester and the academic community that I began to get to know. But the pandemic unfortunately did hit during my undergraduate experience, so I think that really changed what my studies looked like, how I engaged with Rochester, and what I felt I could really learn from the community. Um, so once I wrapped up my program, or my undergrad program in December of 2021, that kind of gave me some time that following spring semester to figure out what was next. And I just had this feeling of needing to have more time in Rochester. Um, Thankfully, the what was then the medical humanities master's program and is now the bioethics and health humanities one. It offered pretty much exactly what I wanted to continue to learn about. So really histories and origins of the body and of our healthcare system, different things in the health humanities like storytelling and visual arts, as well as some introduction to research and different types of methodology that can be used in both bioethics and health humanities. So I think I found the right fit. That was the only master's program I ended up applying to, and was extremely excited that I got to do it.
And what are some of the highlights from the program?
Absolutely. Some of the coursework I mentioned were definitely my favorites, and of course, as part of the master's program, we had to do our own independent capstone research project. For myself, I got to explore the lived experience of individuals with vitiligo. It's just a skin condition that causes depigmentation, and I myself have it. So while both kind of learning from different narratives that individuals have written about their experiences, I also got to kind of go through this reflective process with how it's impacted my own life. So it almost became an autoethnographic project as well, which I really appreciated the opportunity to do. Um, and the faculty in the bioethics and health humanities department, I think I was able to learn so much and build really great connections with all of them. That really solidified and uh, gave me exposure into their careers and how they built it, and gave me a better sense of how I can navigate building my own in this field.
What role do you see bioethics playing when it comes to bridging science, medicine, as well as that human experience of illness?
Yeah, I think bioethics can sometimes have the connotation of or be reduced to really finding out like what is the right way of navigating really controversial issues or ethical dilemmas in healthcare. But it's really so much more. It brings together so many different interdisciplinary fields. Sort of brings to the forefront, how history, art, science, and technology, literature have all influenced our healthcare system, how individuals and providers and policymakers really perceive health. Um, so I think it's extremely impactful for bringing together a lot of different people to understand how to um, best deliver care and help individuals with their well-being and health.
And when we spoke ahead of this, you mentioned, your research involved qualitative work with patient populations. So, what did you learn from that process? Maybe that you can't get from just being in a classroom, and maybe more so the benefit of being at like an academic medical center.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so during my master's program, I was able to work with some narratives from like qualitative narratives of those living with vitiligo. But even after finishing my master's program, I got to stick around and do some qualitative work uh, with two different populations: those with sickle cell disease, and then parents and caregivers of children with medical complexity. Um, really vastly different experiences that I was going through with the different populations that I was able to engage with. Um, I think that the biggest thing I learned was really like the power of the stories that these individuals hold, and unfortunately that not a lot of them have an outlet for letting people know their experiences. Um, so for me, one of the biggest things I was grateful to have the opportunity to have is just the chance to listen to individuals and hear them out and kind of learn from their experiences that they've been kind of holding inside and not feeling like they have the opportunity to either share with their providers or even their family members. Um, so I think that was extremely powerful, and that's not something that you can really read in text. And oftentimes do you get the opportunity to kind of meet with a stranger who never met before and have an isolated time where you get to hear a lot of their personal experiences that they might not have shared with others.
Can you share a little on just like how that was all worked into, the master's program and your work?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so, at least for my own independent research, a lot of it was online, publicly accessible narratives
Got
that
it.
individuals had published. But I think the biggest thing from the master's program was our intro into research methodology, and that really taught us about um, different ways of engaging with populations in research, and of course, with sticking around. Post-master's program in Rochester and at the medical center to complete research. I think I was able to use a lot of those tools um, in directing uh, how I was working with these populations. Since sometimes there's the phrase of as a researcher, you're kind of like a tool in a study, and it's not like really like you're talking with a friend or a family member, like you're talking with a study participant or subject. So it's a much different relationship, but I think the master's program really primed me well for being able to know how to successfully navigate those relationships. And especially when you're engaging with sometimes very intense experiences that the individuals are sharing, especially through interviewing and like focus groups that they may participate in.
Grad school is challenging enough. Let MyHub give you a hand in planning your career and professional development. Need CV help? Grant writing tips? LinkedIn upgrade? We've got you covered. From one-on-one career coaching and writing support to wellness resources, mentorship, and fostering your professional network, MyHub is your partner every step of the way. Not sure who can help? That's what we're here for. We'll connect you with the right people and tools to move forward with confidence. You don't have to do this alone. Visit myhub.urmc.edu to learn more. So, after you completed the master's program, you kind of took some time, right? Like last time we talked, you talked about um, building your story a little bit ahead of applying to PhD programs. Well, I guess when you finished up the master's, had you always, or was the idea to go into a PhD program, or you were when you finished up master's, were you not sure?
I think it was definitely always something I was considering. I just didn't know how soon it was going to happen. Um, in my mind, and I think the mental timeline I had myself almost locked in for a while was to just take kind of a year gap between my master's and going into a PhD program. And I ended up having to take a little bit of a longer gap in between then, just because I felt like I still needed time and really the opportunity to connect my motivations and interests in academia and research with the experiences I've already got, um, and really take time to kind of like yeah build that story that I wanted to tell. Um, so I think something that really helped with that, and I learned it through completing my own research in the master's program. With it being almost a auto ethnographic project, my mentor told me like you have to physically write your own story.
Mm.
So a lot of that process of building that story and knowing what I wanted to do took actually putting pen to paper and writing out what it was that at least for my research what I had experienced, but in terms of moving forward, what I really wanted to do and how I wanted to build my career, which of course then helped in the application phase of having things like personal statement kind of ready and um, set for submitting.
I know a lot of folks find it hard to think about taking a break, or not necessarily a break, but like a year, not off, but a year, kind of in between things. And some people call it a gap year in certain instances, or just some people might just think of it as like a year to figure things out. I think it's hard for a lot of folks to do that. Whether it's because, I don't know, they there's a fear that they're going to be out of the game for too long, or that that this career trajectory they may have had in mind might not pan out. So was it hard for you to do that? And then what did how important was it, to did it end up being for you?
Yeah. Uh, I think that the time off I ended up taking was extremely crucial into getting me to where I am today. I think if I had applied and on my original timeline, I don't think I would have eventually made it into the kind of like top program I wanted and where I'm at now at UTMB. Um, but it was extremely difficult to kind of break that kind of like locked sense or timeline that I had in my mind. And I know for a lot of individuals, there's also external factors to that they may be influencing a lot, like their family and community, or um, other determinants that like financials that may be something that this is um, maybe speeding up or slowing down their progress and timeline, or when they feel like they need to get things done. But I think it was, like I said, extremely crucial for at least myself to really take time to like discern what I really wanted to do. And that was difficult in itself. But I think what was important was like intuitively feeling what was right and following what I was intrinsically motivated by. Um, and I think that kind of built the opportunities for myself in terms of finding the right program for me, applying for it, and knowing how to kind of like present um, really the career I wanted to build to those who are considering my applications.
And you may have already touched on this, but any advice you'd give to trainees about, like, pacing themselves, taking things a year at a time, or maybe even, maybe it's a month at a time, rather than feeling that pressure to have things figured out right away?
Yeah, I think my biggest advice would be that you are your largest investment. So the more time you take to better yourself will, of course, pay off in the long run. Um, that's sometimes gets lost in the motion of when you're trying to get things done. But yeah, I think that the more time you take to really better yourself will ultimately help, and also give you a clearer sense of what you want to do and how you want to approach kind of building that path for yourself. I always have to tell myself that slow is smooth and smooth is fast. So that's always a good approach when I think I may be rushing through something, just to take a step back and kind of slow it down.
Love it. So now that you're in Texas, in the midst of a new program, what are you hoping to explore a little bit more in your doctoral work?
Yeah, so being in a bioethics and health humanities program, I think before even getting to my own independent research, I'm excited to explore and be back in kind of like the student position,
Yeah.
and really get to benefit from the curriculum that they have here. Um, there's so many interesting things in bioethics and health humanities that I'm excited to get the chance to learn about. When I was in Rochester, I worked predominantly when I was doing qualitative research with populations that were children or young adults, or probably the parents and caregivers of those children. And right now, I'm actually taking kind of an ethics of aging course, so I'm excited to learn about the opposite end of the spectrum and how individuals themselves and our society kind of view aging and the perception of successful aging.
Mm.
And uh, yeah, so that's extremely exciting, and I'm glad I have the opportunity to do so. And then, of course, with all of the work I've been able to do before in Rochester, it all really surrounded chronic conditions that individuals have and how they experience them, how they build relationships with themselves, their families and communities, and kind of their societies at large. So I'm excited to have the opportunity to hopefully continue that in my own dissertation work in the coming years. Really explore a little bit more about how chronic illnesses are represented and expressed, you know, here in the U.S. and globally.
And one thing we didn't touch on from the master's program was that you were selected as the graduate student speaker at the master's and advanced certificate ceremony. What was it, 2023?
Yes, it was.
Yes. And in that speech, you talked about self discovery, gratitude. So when you look back now, what would you say you're most grateful for from your Rochester experience?
So many things. It's more like so many people. Um, Everyone that I got to meet and work with in Rochester, especially the mentorship I received early in my, actually later in my undergraduate career, I applied for. There's a program called the UR Bridge program that connects undergraduate students with faculty and researchers at the medical center. And the faculty member that I got paired with then, I think it was the beginning of my senior year of undergrad, um, ended up, she's my mentor today. I did research with her through my master's program, worked with her 2 years following my master's, and will kind of be a forever colleague of mine, that I'll have in Rochester. And um, so yeah, I think that's the one of the things I'm most grateful for is the opportunity to meet and benefit from a very large academic and professional community in Rochester. But also having the chance, I mean, I moved to Rochester when I was 17 and left when I was 24. So those were very pivotal years of me growing up and growing into myself, both as an individual and academic. So uh, having an environment that was much different from where I grew up in California, to kind of have that exploration, and self discovery was um, something I'll always be grateful for.
That's awesome. And before we jump into the final, or just about finished here, I am going to ask sort of like that, if you could go back and give yourself a piece of advice, what would it be? But I want to just throw a couple quick, these can be kind of called rapid fire questions. I didn't send your way ahead of time. I promise they were not like crazy curveballs, but just some, maybe some other tidbits people might like to know about Rochester and, kind of bioethics space in general. So Rochester, did you have a favorite restaurant? I'm just curious, what was it?
Challenge. There's a lot of good spots in Rochester, and that's what I definitely miss.
Ah,
I think when it was a special, for special occasions, the Owl House was
okay.
a really nice place, especially to get together with friends and celebrate a birthday or an accomplishment or something. No, we're happy about, or if we just needed kind of like a pick me up in a hard time. Always nice to get a really nice dinner or brunch there.
As far if someone was interested in bioethics, they watch this and they want to learn more, maybe they're not sure what that is, or maybe they're thinking about going into, taking that step into a master's program or a PhD program. Is there any books or any just kind of pieces of work, people to follow that you would recommend they check out? Any one of those?
Mm. Yeah, that's definitely a great question. Um, for wanting to get a little bit more involved, I think there's a lot of approaches, and I think definitely literature is like a way to go. But I think once you're kind of in the space, then you get the exposure to that. But I think it really starts with the people. So
Mm-hmm.
being able to identify faculty or professors at whatever institution individuals may be at or may be interested in um, is a really great place to start. I know even when I was applying to different institutions, I was kind of like cold emailing and reaching out to individuals. And I think something that I've noticed across bioethics and health humanities departments is the willingness that faculty hold to want to help
Mm.
other individuals. And I think a little bit more so than maybe other fields in healthcare and medicine. So I think that's the biggest thing. And I've seen it here, in Texas, at the institution I'm at now, and in Rochester, that everyone is more than welcoming and wanting people um, to, learn more about and bring them into the fields of bioethics and health humanities. So I think it's really reaching out to people. And there's even a lot of like society
Mm.
organizations that do this. So I know that like it's the American Society of Bioethics and Health Humanities, great place to start. Also, the Health Humanities Consortium. So kind of some of those larger organizations are also really helpful for getting a larger picture of the landscape of the field.
And last thing on Rochester, when you weren't, you know, working, doing research, studying, or at the Owl House, what would you do outside of school? What was a, kind of a regular activity for you, a regular outing, anything like that?
Definitely the two biggest things for myself, aside from food, I really loved the coffee in Rochester. Shout out to Hydra Coffee House. They were my favorite, and I also had the chance to live a couple blocks down for them
Oh, perfect.
for 2 years, so I was there more than I needed to be. But I loved their stuff, and a really big thing, kind of a through line in my time in Rochester, was running.
Hmm.
So I got to train for my first marathon in Rochester, which was really interesting to do in the Rochester summer with the heat and humidity. I'm definitely getting a lot more of that here in Texas, but
I thought you were gonna say in the bitter cold.
that too. Learning to run indoors was something I still have not learned to love.
No.
But yeah, that was the biggest thing for me to kind of get out there and exercise, and really became my form of like mental and emotional regulation. So um, yeah, I always say like movement is the music of the body. So just kind of got to do it in whatever way works for you.
I love that. All right. So if you could go back and give yourself, your younger self, a piece of advice when you were starting at Rochester, um, what would that be?
Yeah. The biggest thing would be to take time to meet as many people as possible. Especially as a first generation student, there was a lot of things I had not had exposure to prior, that I thought weren't for me, or that spaces I wasn't allowed to kind of like break into or get to know more about, or opportunities that I thought I couldn't take advantage of. Um, but it's really from building connections and building out your network that you're able to find new opportunities for yourself. That people are able to bring opportunities to you, and that you can really make connections between your interests and the actual applied work that you do. Um, so yeah, I would definitely say take the time to meet a lot of people and identify good mentorship. Um, that's the really the biggest thing. And if I could add one more, it's to always bring someone with you, whether that's um, someone that's younger than you or that wants to learn more about what you're doing. Always bring someone into that space with you, because other people most likely been doing that for yourself. So definitely try to pay it back and build that capacity in others.
Awesome. Well, Alejandro, thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure. Really appreciate it. Thanks for everything.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks so much for tuning in to the latest episode of the Next Step podcast. If you liked what you heard, please share with other members of the University of Rochester community or anyone you think could benefit from these career stories. And we wish you nothing but the best in your own career journey. Until next time.